Welcome to Effective Sales and Employee Development with Ken Thorton, who's the VP of Sales for Cardinal Health, which is a Fortune 20 company. Ken manages the lab business unit for the Eastern Zone of the United States. Ken has had an amazing sales background from Xerox Company to Abbott, Johnson & Johnson, Granger, and now Cardinal Health. Welcome, Ken Thornton.
My name is Ken Thornton. I'm the Vice President of Sales for Cardinal Health. I manage the lab business unit, been with Cardinal Health for 7 years. And Cardinal Health, if you don't know, is a healthcare distributor, one of the biggest in the world. We're about a $155 billion organization, and we have both pharmaceutical and medical products, which we distribute all around the world. We are a global organization, and we are a Fortune 20 company.
As a leader, a part of your responsibility is empowering your team members to own their professional development process and becoming a leader. Ken Thornton is going to share with us why it's important for you as a leader to do that.
I have many thoughts and experiences around employee development. It's a critical part of working in a corporation. My number one rule around employee development is the actual employee owns their process. They own the development. Now, the organization in which they work for is a facilitator and provides the resources to do that. But at the end of the day, you must be the owner and architect of your development. It's a critical part of your growth. It's a critical part of what you do, and it makes you better to sharpen your sword during the process to make certain that you get the ideal goal in moving the organization. Development is about getting better at what you do from day one through day X, and at the end of the day, the organization recognizes that development, and it allows you the opportunity to aspire the proverbial corporate ladder. So that's very important in the process, but you must own the process of development. Developing my sales team is in two different layers. Of course, we have the frontline salespeople that call on the customer, the primary touch point. And then you have my sales leaders that actually the sales team report into and actually drive some tactical but more strategic responsibilities they incur. At the end of the day, I like to develop salespeople with very aspiring desires, if you would. They want to go to the next level. My sales team want to be sales leaders. My sales leaders want to be sales executives. And if they have the fortitude, the intestinal fortitude, and the desire to get that path, I support them. I develop them. I put them in a role which I delegate down to them, giving them opportunity to be Ken Thornton for a day. And what does that feel like? How does that look like? And give them the opportunity to see what my job is. So over time, if they get enough touch points and get enough relevant experience in those spaces, they can realize, first of all, is this something they want to do, or is this something they can do over time? So the development is actually me moving out the way. I have no problem with hiring people that's better than me, because I know through my multitude of experiences, I can provide relevant situations and occurrences to make sure that I fill the gaps and make them better. At the end of the day, I try to complement my inefficiencies, my deficiencies, because it makes us stronger as a team. So vulnerability is probably the most strongest attribute of a leader, because now you're actually revealing what you can't do or what you don't know. I have no problem doing that because I am a strong leader.
How do we recognize and be more intentional with our team members that need additional development opportunities? Being able to create a culture where everyone on your team uses their strengths and talents. This will allow the organization to exceed expectations more effectively. Employee development also depends on organizational culture, attitude of management from the top down, and the limited opportunities of promotion. Let's hear from Ken and get his perspective on employee development opportunities.
There are many challenges in employee development, because throughout the organization, they recognize you as a certain individual regarding your performance. We have hypo, which is high potential. We have hyper, which is high performance. And those individuals typically get more of the development programs and the Excel programs that allows them to get better at what they do. The challenges with that is that those subpar or those average employees sometimes don't get the same level of deployment. And I get why that is. However, I think there needs to be more involvement at the subpar, the average employees, to make sure they get to a point of being hypo or hyper, because they can never realize that level of success if the organization actually do not pull them into that process. Another thing about in development is that, especially in the world today, as you deal with the racial equity part of it, there's opportunities in order to address some of those racial inequities that exist, because there's apparent excess gaps between people of color and people of black that the other parties don't quite get. So it's regarding development, I believe in order to close those access gaps, there need to be more attention to be contributed to that process as it relates to the people. The culture really helps drive the development in any different facets, in many different facets, should I say. Regarding the limited amount of opportunities at the top level, as you can well imagine, that's a finite number of opportunities. And it's all depending on the development of the person that gets to aspire and actually to ascend that proverbial corporate ladder to get to the top. However, we know that there's a lot of inequities across the business. That may be gender, that may be ethnicity, that may be political, whatever it may be, there's inequities that exist, and culture drives that facet of it. So we must understand what those inequities are, acknowledge them, address them, and execute upon them in order to move to the next layer, so we have a fair and equitable situation where culture influences the decisions, but it doesn't really make the decision to drive the process, and you have what you call, employee satisfaction, which is a critical part of what we do.
As a leader, you must ensure that you have a great team, great service, and great products in order to gain revenue and sales. Let's listen to Ken as he explains revenue and profit.
Increasing sales and driving growth is two different things. There's revenue side of the business, and then there's the growth part of the business. Revenue is sales, growth is profit. So at the end of the day, it's not what we bring in the door as far as the sales is concerned. It's more important the profitability we grow in the business, because you can't take sales to the bank. You can only take profit to the bank. So the growth and the profit and the sales is two different entities. However, let me explain to you. The sales of the business is very critical because it keeps the lights on the place, it keeps the lights in the corporation, it keeps the heat inside the building. However, the profitability is what allows you to grow and invest in the business to get better as what we do. So it's very important. And it all starts with good people and good programs and good marketing and good products and services. As you bring all of them together as the necessary recipe, you get a chance to thrive in those environments, and sales drives profitability, but that also comes with good product in order to sell the value proposition of your transaction.
When driving business objectives, it's important to understand quantity and quality. Quantity and quality, sure, they both have their place in the organization. So for example, when recruiting and hiring, you never want to compromise on quality. Ken is going to share with us when it's necessary to focus on quantity versus quality. Let's listen.
Focus on quality and quantity, again, is very important. As you deal in a commodity-driven business, it's all about quantity, because it's not on really the value proposition, or the difference between two products. It's more focused on the differences of those two products. So if you have something driving quantity, you're typically dealing with a commodity-type business which is based on price. Now let's speak about quality. When you speak about quality, you talk about a value proposition, providing a distinction or disparity between two items. Now you can tell a customer which one is better and why, and how that contributes to their bottom line and actually help them reach their goals. So quality is very important, but you got to sell items of volume in order to get to that ultimate number. So there is a difference between quality and quantity. The golden rules of sale is very simple. The basic rule is the transference of feelings from the seller to the buyer. And let me explain that to you. Selling is nothing but transferring how I feel about a product or service to the customer. But in order to do that, you really have to feel good about the product or service. That's why you should always join a company that you can believe in, and that you can actually take what they do for a living, take their value proposition, and be able to convey that to a customer, so that at the end of the day, Product and service matter, training matters, marketing matters, but more than anything, your belief in the products that you sell is most important, because if you don't believe in a product, there's no way you can sell a lot of it. I'm not talking about making a sale, I'm talking about making a sales career. The critical part of the profession of sales is not really to actually make a sale, it's to actually make a sales career. And let me help you out with how to get to that point. At the end of the day, sales make the world go around. We know and understand if you're building a house, you need the wood. But before you get the wood, somebody had to sell that person that sells the wood. They had to sell that person. If you need resin, you had to sell the resin. If you need, any kind of material, you have to sell. So sales really makes the world go around. However, what really makes a difference is when you take care of the customer, when you deliver on your promises, when you handle objections, when you do all the critical things leading up to the sale. That's just one part of it. How do you follow up after the sale? That post-sale support and things of that nature is makes the difference. So now you don't want to make a sale, you want to make a sales experience. It's all about the experience that makes the difference. And if you do that enough times, you will develop a sales career, because you have to have a sustainable, repeatable, customer-driven model in order to get to that point. And that's building a sales career versus building a sale.